The question was barely louder than the clatter of cutlery, yet it sliced through the diner like a blade. Heads turned, forks paused mid-air. Grease popped on the grill, and the old jukebox hummed softly in the corner, but for a moment it felt as if the entire room was holding its breath. A single sentence, asked with shaking hands and lowered eyes, had exposed a quiet desperation that most people preferred not to see, and sitting only a few stools away, a leather-clad biker with scarred knuckles and a weathered face lifted his head, his reaction about to change everything. If you believe stories of kindness, second chances, and unexpected humanity still matter in this world, take a moment right now to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps these stories reach hearts that may need them most. The woman who asked that question was named Elena, though no one in the diner knew it yet. She was 32 but looked older, exhaustion carving faint lines around her eyes. Her jacket was thin for the season, frayed at the cuffs, and she held it closed with one hand as if it were armor. She had come into the diner at the edge of town not because she wanted to be there, but because it was the only place still open after her late shift cleaning offices downtown. The smell of fried food made her stomach twist with hunger, yet she ordered only the cheapest plate on the menu and a glass of water. Every dollar mattered. Every coin had a purpose already assigned before it even touched her palm. Elena's life had narrowed over the past 2 years into a careful balancing act. Her husband had died suddenly in a construction accident, leaving behind grief, medical bills, and a 5-year-old daughter named Sophia, who still woke up crying for her father in the middle of the night. Elena worked 2 jobs when she could find them, took buses that ran too early and too late, and learned to smile through bone deep. Fatigue because her daughter was watching. Some nights, there was barely enough food at home, and Elena learned to eat less so Sophia could eat more. She told herself it was temporary, that things would get better, but hope had begun to feel like a fragile thing she had to protect from breaking. That night in the diner, Elena ate slowly, counting bites, trying to ignore the way her hands trembled from hunger and tiredness. Across the room sat the biker, a man who seemed carved from the road itself. His black leather vest was covered in patches, his arms thick with muscle and inked with fading tattoos. A heavy beard framed his mouth, and his boots looked like they had walked through storms most people only read about. He'd arrived with the roar of an engine that rattled the windows and drawn more than a few uneasy glances from the other customers. People made assumptions quickly, silently, the way they always did. When Elena finished eating, she stared at the remaining food on her plate. It wasn't much, but it was enough to make a difference to a little girl waiting at home. Her chest tightened as she weighed pride against need. She had been raised to never ask for more than she deserved, to never inconvenience others, but desperation has a way of pushing people past their comfort. She caught the waitress's eye, her voice soft, her words careful, and asked if she could take the leftovers with her. The reaction was immediate and merciless, though unspoken. A couple at a nearby booth exchanged looks. Someone scoffed quietly. The waitress hesitated, her expression flickering between sympathy and discomfort. It wasn't the question itself that shocked the room, but what it revealed. It stripped away the illusion that everyone there was fine, that hunger and hardship were things that happened somewhere else, to someone else. And then the biker turned fully in his seat. He had been watching Elena from the moment she walked in, not with judgment but with recognition. He saw the way she held herself, the way she scanned prices before ordering, the way she ate as if every bite had weight. He knew that look because he had worn it once himself, years ago, when life had knocked him down hard and left him bleeding on the pavement. His name was Marcus, though most people just called him by his road name. He had lost people too, lost years to anger and regret, and found himself crawling back towards something like redemption through long miles and quiet acts no one ever saw. As the room grew tense, Marcus stood. The scrape of his chair against the floor sounded louder than it should have. Conversations died completely now, all attention drawn to him. Some expected trouble, others braced for embarrassment. Elena's shoulders tensed, fear flickering across her face as she wondered if she had done something wrong, if she was about to be shamed for asking a simple question born of love for her child. Instead, Marcus walked to the counter, pulled out his worn wallet, and placed a few bills down with deliberate calm. He didn't look at Elena right away. He didn't raise his voice. He simply paid for her meal and then more. He asked the waitress to box up not just the leftovers but a fresh meal too, and a slice of pie. The diner was so quiet you could hear the hum of the refrigerator in the back. When he finally turned to Elena, his eyes were steady, not hard, but gentle in a way that surprised everyone. What happened next wasn't loud or dramatic, but it carried weight. Marcus explained, without speeches or pity, that no child should go to bed hungry, and no parent should feel ashamed for trying to take care of their own. He said that someone once did the same for him when he had nothing but a full tank and a broken heart, and that this was simply his turn to pass it on. The words settled into the room like dust after a storm, softening edges, changing the air. Elena felt something inside her crack open. Relief washed over her so suddenly it made her dizzy. She hadn't realized how tightly she'd been holding herself together until that moment. Tears blurred her vision, but she blinked them back, nodding, clutching the boxed food as if it were something sacred. She wanted to say 1,000 things, to explain her life, her daughter, her gratitude, but all she could manage was a whispered thank you carried on a breath that shook. The diner slowly returned to life, but it wasn't the same as before. People avoided their phones. A man at the counter quietly paid for another customer's coffee. The couple in the booth left a larger tip than usual. Something had shifted, subtle but real, like a reminder of who they could be if they chose to see one another. Marcus returned to his seat, finished his coffee, and left without fanfare, the growl of his motorcycle fading into the night. For Elena, the walk home felt lighter despite the cold. She clutched the warm bag against her chest, imagining Sophia's smile when she saw the pie, imagining a night without hunger gnawing at the edges of their peace. When she opened the door to their small apartment, Sophia ran to her, chattering about a picture she had drawn. They sat together at the tiny kitchen table, sharing food, sharing laughter, sharing a moment that felt like a gift. Elena didn't explain everything. She simply told her daughter that someone had been very kind. Days passed, then weeks. Elena carried that night with her like a quiet flame. It reminded her that the world was not only harsh, that strangers could still choose compassion. She found herself standing a little taller at work, smiling a little more easily. When she had the chance, she paid it forward in small ways, leaving change in a vending machine, sharing a meal with another struggling mother, offering kindness where she could. It didn't fix everything, but it changed how she moved through her days. Marcus, meanwhile, rode on, the miles stretching out before him. He didn't think of himself as a hero. To him, it was just a debt repaid. But sometimes, late at night on an empty highway, he thought of Elena and her daughter, hoped they were doing okay, hoped that the chain of kindness would keep moving long after he was gone from that diner. Life didn't suddenly become easy for either of them. Struggles remained, bills still came, grief still whispered in quiet moments. But something important had been planted that night, something that couldn't be taken away, the knowledge that dignity could be preserved, that help could come without strings, that humanity could show up wearing unexpected faces. Just before we reach the end of this story, take a moment to comment below and share what this moment meant to you, or a time when kindness from a stranger changed your life. Near the end of her shift one evening months later, Elena passed by that same diner. She paused, looking through the window at the familiar booths and counter. She didn't go in. She simply smiled, whispered a thank you into the night, and kept walking forward, carrying with her the quiet strength that came from being seen and helped without judgment. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that compassion still matters, and that small actions can echo loudly in someone else's life, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your engagement helps keep these stories alive, reaching others who may be standing at their own counter, holding their breath, hoping the world will be kind.